right, Margot.
Wow.
Chief Rosecrans, would you start us with the pledge, please?
Yes, sir. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Victor, would you lead us in prayer, please?
God, we come before you in Jesus' name, and we would like to thank you for this life and the opportunity that you've given us to be here. We're asking for your perfect will to be done through the council. Please give us wisdom and guidance to perform your will. We ask for doors to be open and doors to be closed, also according to your will. Please help us in our mission. We ask that you'll pour favor over the city and deliver us from trouble. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Need a roll call, please?
Councillor Johnson?
Here.
Councillor Lorenz?
Here.
Councillor Segola?
Here.
Councillor Ellithorpe?
Here.
Mayor Becker?
Here.
A quorum is declared.
All right. Approval of consent agenda, minutes regular meeting November 15th, and review and approval of accounts payable. Everybody get to look at that?
Move to approve the consent agenda and review and approval of accounts payable.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. Is there any more discussion? Nita?
Councillor Segola?
Aye.
Councillor Lorenz?
Aye.
Councillor Ellithorpe?
Aye.
Councillor Johnson?
Aye.
Mayor Becker?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Citizen comments and special presentations. Citizen comments, City Council welcomes your unscheduled comments. Please limit comments to 3 minutes. Council will not take action at this same meeting. Margot?
Thank you, Mayor.
Did somebody write your name down?
Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's a beautiful Christmassy time of year, but I do have to speak up. I have a concern. You know me. I just sort of lay it out, and I don't mean to be unkind or anything. I just want y'all to think. Budget. I have issues with this, what's going on with the budget. I have a budget to live by. I have so much money coming in, I know what my bills are going out. If I have any extra, I save. I think the city works the same way. Budgets are budgets. You guys have got money coming in, money going out. You balance the budget this year because of the graciousness of the departments here and everybody working together, and I think that is fabulous. You need to work with a balanced budget. However, next year might be a different story. You cannot depend upon the same help you got this year because I think the city probably is at the bottom of the barrel of the cuts they can make. So the money has got to come from somewhere. The money and I'm still new with all of this. So please, if I'm wrong, let me know. In the general fund, where you draw from, you have emergencies coming up. What if we have another huge bad snowstorm and Rob has to use $20,000, $30,000 to clean the city with branches and that? Where's that money coming from? What if one of his big machineries breaks down, like the street sweeper, and we don't have money to fix it? Or it can't be fixed and has to be replaced. There is money hopefully set aside for emergencies. We cannot just spend because it has to be spent, because we're doing good, and more power to everybody for helping to get this year. Because some of the councils in the past, as Forrest has mentioned 20-some years ago, didn't plan for the future. You guys need to plan for the future, for unexpected things that come up. Is the money there? Please, please keep that in mind as you make your decisions. You're all highly intelligent people. I have faith in you. I know you'll make the right decisions, but please think about the welfare of the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Margot. I'm really proud of you. You did that in less than 3 minutes. Jennifer Becker.
Good evening. I just wanted to make a really quick run through of some
State your name,
yous.
please.
Oh, Jennifer Becker, sorry. Really? I put a letter to the editor in the newspaper today, but I just wanted to get up here and just thank some people. I've heard some good things about the parade. I put a couple negative. That's okay, we're working on it. But just wanted to thank some people, Mayor Becker, for being extremely patient and keeping me semi-sane. John Rosecrans, Monte Vista Police Department, Pat Sullivan, Monte Vista Fire Department, Rob Vance's Public Works Department. Holy cow, they stepped it up for me. I mean, the tree lighting, I think, was a huge success. Next year, I want to double what we have there. That was just something I just kind of threw in. I thought, you know, every other city does kind of a lighting of something, lighting of City Hall, lighting of a tree. Monte Vista needs something too, so I picked our big, beautiful pine tree in the park, and so yeah, Rob and his crew stepped it up. They also provided the fire pits for Adams Street. Of course, Forest and the city of Monte Vista. I had 3 major people that were really pushing this for me as far as getting the word out. Valley Publishing, KSLV, KDYN radio station, and the Locks and their daughter Tara Alonzo with SO Voices. She flooded Facebook for me, which was amazing. Jerry Abker and the crew at the Chamber of Commerce, they were great. Jerry understood this was literally my first time ever planning something like this, and he was a huge help. Starbucks now the most provided us with the hot cocoa at the North Pole. Then I have some people, Nikki Rosecrans, Raina Bowser, Colette Skeff, Unita Vance, Chelsea Martinez, Tim and Wendy Davidson, Carol Riggenbosch is the one that opened up Facet Building for us, which was amazing. I know there's a lot of people that had never even seen in the Facet Building, so that was pretty cool. Ruth Ann Johnson, she was like my rock for the last couple weeks. Because I not only had this going on, but I'm a director at the food bank, and I had 400 people show up for our Thanksgiving distribution, right smack dab in the middle of all this planning, so that was a little crazy. Cliff Kincannon, Valley Communications, he provided the PA system and the Christmas music downtown for us. Monte Vista Rotary helped kind of man the fires downtown. Of course, I want to thank all the merchants, and I didn't bring a list, but I had several merchants that entered the window decorating contest, but we also had a lot of merchants that just stepped up. And you know, I told my merchants, even if you don't want to be in the window decorating contest, you don't want to stick to the theme, that was the thing. The theme was a Christmas story, and some people really didn't know what to do. I said, just put lights in. We just want lights. I did try to decorate 117 Adams Street. I need to get the key back to you. But there's no power in that building, so I could not decorate. Kathy Rogers actually was going to try and turn on the power for the 1 month for me, and they decided not to. So yeah, that's pretty much all of my thank yous. Of course, parade entries too. We had 20 parade entries because I had 1 drop out, so that was pretty amazing. Next year we're shooting for 40. So thank you.
There you go, Jennifer.
Forgive me if I mess this up, but Christy Jummel? Jamel, sorry.
Hello. My name is Christy Jamel. I've never done this before. It took a lot of guts for me to come up here and speak up for my store and the other stores, by the way. But I live at 202 First Avenue here in Monte Vista. Is one of the owners of the Phoenix Hold business on Adams Street. I'd like to propose to the council that the business owners on Adams and elsewhere, if it's deemed appropriate, post a sign with arrows pointing in the direction of the business. This would let the drivers on US 160 know that in addition to the supermarkets, gas stations, and Dairy Queen, there are other open businesses in Monte Vista and perhaps improve not only our bottom line, but that of the city as well. With Quincy's Steakhouse, for example, our own Phoenix Hold, and others, we could start with a sandwich board, and the city could charge each business a fee of $2 per month per business permit. And depending on the hoped-for business increase in our sales, we just might turn Monte Vista into a destination. This is just a suggestion to both advertise and increase our revenue and that of the city. I can be reached anytime Wednesday through Saturday from 10 to 4 at my storefront located at 122 Adams Street. And I'd like to thank y'all for everything. I feel really like part of a family being over there, so, but anyway, I'm really nervous. So anyway, it was nice to meet all of y'all.
You did well.
Thank you. Is there any other comments? You had 24 seconds left, so okay.
I just want to say the parade was amazing. Everyone was.
I just got people signed up.
I had
decorated their
so
floats.
many good comments.
Yeah, the people
So-
who decorated their floats went
Yes.
amazing, over the top.
It
How about
was
the 100-ton
super.
tree?
And the tree lighting was phenomenal. We actually are a city like the Walmart. Thank you.
Forrest, resolution? Moving right
There's
along.
wonderful, like he stuff, got all computer glitches today, so I'm totally doing paper. All right, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, in front of you this evening you have ordinance, or mill levy, or, yeah, let me start over. Resolution 15-2018, the annual mill levy. You'll notice in your packets that you have a document which is the final certification evaluation by the county assessor. This is provided by the county assessor annually. They give us a draft in September, and in November they provide a final. We're required by statute to approve the mill levy prior to December 31st. So if you look at the actual mill levy sheet, not a whole lot of changes there. Pretty minor. As far as the resolution itself goes, the city imposes, by the approval of the voters sometime in the past, 14.740 mills for the general corporate purposes of the city. And basically, we're just certifying that, or approving by resolution, that we're accepting the certification evaluation and that we're assessing the same mills that we are approved to by the voters. As we indicated in the budget session, that's a slightly smaller amount of revenue this year due to the Gallagher amendment and all that fun stuff. But the mills don't change, so staff would request that you pass and approve this resolution this evening.
So I would motion for reconsideration.
Not on this one, Victor.
Okay, this is a mill levy.
Not on this one. Just move to have that.
I move to accept Resolution 15-2018, a resolution establishing the mill levy for the city of Monte Vista, Colorado for the year beginning January 1st, 2019 and ending December 31st, 2019.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we accept resolution, sorry, number 15-2018, establishing the annual mill levy for the city of Monte Vista, Colorado for the year beginning January 1st, 2019 and ending December 31st, 2019. Is there any more discussion? Nita?
Counselor Ellithorpe?
Aye.
Counselor Segola?
Aye.
Counselor Johnson?
Aye.
Counselor Lorenz?
Aye.
Mayor Becker?
Aye.
Motion carries.
to the ordinances. Reconsideration of ordinance 890.
I would motion for a reconsideration on ordinance 890.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for reconsideration of ordinance 890. Is there any more discussion? Nita?
Counselor Johnson?
Aye.
Counselor Ellithorpe?
Aye.
Counselor Lorenz?
No.
Counselor Segola?
Aye.
Mayor Becker?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1.
Ordinance 890. Can you just talk about this again for us, or we just?
It's up to the council's pleasure. If you want to discuss it, I'm prepared to do that.
Maybe just give a brief overview of what.
Sure, I can do that. Essentially, what you have in front of you is an ordinance which would approve a budget for FY 2019. As we've discussed previously in the work sessions and in council, the budget has no negative net spending in the general fund. There is spending of fund balance in the utilities, the water and sewer funds. I did want to answer Margot's concern, if I might. So within the fund balance that we have in the general fund, if there were those kind of things like a snowstorm or that kind of thing, we kind of know what those things cost, and we definitely have adequate reserves for those kind of issues. Like, I think that snowstorm was, well, but it was about, you know, looked at the holistic cost was maybe $30,000. We were actually able to cover that year within the operational funds of the general fund, and we did not make a budget amendment to cover those costs. So we were able to do that. That meant we didn't do some other things. So we do have adequate fund balances for those kind of things. I think we talked about, you know, basically our revenue estimate is very conservative. We did downgrade the sales tax, potential sales tax receipts in order to account for the Gallagher Amendment. We used a projection of sales tax collected in the general sales tax, which, barring any unforeseen circumstances, is very conservative. We would anticipate that the actual revenues would probably be $20,000 or $30,000 more than that, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I think that'll definitely fall on the positive side. I think when Jenny gives her financial report, you'll see that actually we're continuing to overperform as far as revenues versus expenditures. So the starting projected fund balance in this budget is, in the general fund, is likely understated. You know, we still have a couple of months to balance out at the end of the year. We do have some expenses that might alter what that looks like, which are reimbursable. We've been finishing up our infrastructure projects, and there's always a time thing that's reimbursable. So we spent over $360,000 on that, you know, basically closing out that project. Those draws are submitted. We hope to get the checks back. You know, we'll probably get them back by January, so in the year end they'll tie out. But there's always a lag there. So our actual cash balances may be affected by that somewhat, but that's actually an enterprise fund. So overall, it is a good budget. We talked about the fund reserve levels that we have, meeting best practices. Doesn't mean that there's not more work to do for the future, but I think it puts us on a solid footing going into fiscal year 2019. I don't know if you have any additional questions, but I would hope that you would pass this evening on reconsideration.
I move to pass ordinance number 890, an ordinance adopting budget and appropriating sums of money for the city of Monte Vista, Colorado for the calendar year beginning January 1, 2019, ending December 31, 2019.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt ordinance number 890, budget appropriating sums of money for the city of Monte Vista, Colorado for the calendar year beginning January 1st, 2019 and ending December 31st, 2019. Any more discussion?
Well, it's the budget, so I guess I do. I would like to say to council and to the community members, I believe that this budget is not addressing some of the problems that we are facing. This budget is not even beginning to work to solve some of the problems that we have facing us. Basically, I think it's a Band-Aid. We're moving forward, kind of status quo. There are decisions that are going to have to be made in the future. I'm a little concerned, and I've visited with Forrest many times about this, that council has not sat down and had serious talks about these this year. It's kind of been, I don't know, I told Forrest, I feel like it's been kind of taboo to talk about some of the problems that are coming at us. And yet it's been pushed up. We'll talk about it next year. We'll talk about it in February or March. And I think that those discussions should have happened mid-summer, late summer at the latest. So that is a concern for me. Another concern is I feel like, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but I feel like we sit here expecting Forrest to tell us we need to do this, we need to do that. That's not Forrest's job. Forrest's job is, as a city manager, to implement the policy the city council passes. Well, if Forrest steps up and says, yeah, we've got some of these problems and I think we need to cut this, we need to reduce these services, maybe it even, we have to lay off people. If he brings that to council and basically we kind of flake out on him and say, no, we don't agree, we're not going to cut services, we're not going to lay anybody off, well then he's got to go back as city manager and manage those very people that he was saying, maybe we need to cut those services. That's not his job, it's council's job. It's council's job to implement the policy. And when I said they might not be comfortable shoes to walk in, that's what I meant. Because if you read the last line, the very last line of the memo from the work session last time, it says, if Forrest doesn't mind me reading it, we can then begin the actual work and analysis to craft a potential outcome for fiscal year 2021 and beyond. What does that mean? That means come 2021, and Forrest and Rob and the managers have told you, there are going to be some serious financial obligations, impacts to us. He's telling us right there, and we're kind of ignoring it, going, yay, we follow best financial practices. Best financial practices is not addressing the income that we don't have for the projects we're going to have to face. Okay? Now, the other thing, I asked Rob at the work session, I said, what's a wastewater treatment plant going to cost? And he said, $15 to $17 million. Did anyone go home and put a pencil to that? Well, I did. So if you're looking at, I took middle ground. If you're looking at $16 million for a wastewater treatment plant, if we take $3 million from our sewer fund, which we have, and we use that as a down payment, okay? I figured probably the best we could do, and I talked to Forrest, he said he's hoping maybe if we have to do this, we can get matching $3 million. Might not get $3 million matching, okay? So I said, okay, we get $2 million in grants toward a wastewater treatment plant. That leaves us with a loan that we're looking at for the city of $11 million. Rob said, probably the place we'd have to go is look at a USDA loan. Okay, so I went and looked it up. A USDA loan for a poverty level municipality is 4 to 4.5% interest. So again, I took the middle ground and figured that we're looking at interest for 20 years, which is about probably what we can get, hopefully 30, but 20 years, the interest on that loan is $5,350,000. Okay, plus our loan, that leaves us a total of $16,350,000. So the grants and the down payment we have is basically paying the interest. Okay, for 20 years, that leaves us at, if we divide it up per year, that leaves us at $818,000 a year that we have to pay for that wastewater treatment plant. Is that in our budget? Nope. Okay, so you divide that up by 12, right, per month, and you come out to about, and I'm rounding, you come out to about $68,000 a month that we have to pay on that loan. We, as in the city and the residents, we have 2,150 sewer taps. All right, that gets it down to $31.62 a month. That doesn't sound like much, but here's my water sewer bill. You know what that is? That's a 72% increase on my water sewer bill. I have 4 people, 2 teenagers living in my house, so my water bill is probably a little higher than most people. But 20 years, 72% increase. That's not 1 year. That's a 72% increase on top of what I'm already paying and the residents every single year. This budget is not solving any of the problems that we have facing us. This is a water treatment plant. It's not a water tower. It's not water storage. And God forbid, please forgive me, it's not paving a couple streets. We are not okay. We're following best financial practices. Yes, we are. We have to. That's the law and should be the rule. But that is not solving our problems, nor is it saving for the future or planning. It's just status quo.
So I guess it begs the question, what do you suggest?
I suggest that, unfortunately, we should have been sitting down and talking about this 6 months ago.
We have sat in work session after work session. We have had meetings, we've looked at the numbers, we've looked at the budget, we've cut places, every place we can cut. What do you suggest? I'm just curious. The city has to function for the next year. Where could you cut that money? We've already got staff that's underpaid. We've got a police force that works their tail off and is underpaid.
Yeah.
Exactly what would you suggest?
I think the council has to sit down and decide that together. That is something we have to do together. And ignoring it and saying, wow, we're following best financial practices, we're good, is not acceptable either.
Counselor, can I add that what you're proposing is based on what could happen. And that's good. I mean, if we've got
well, it's
reserves,
not ignoring it.
It's not to say that we're going to not pay attention to any bad thing that could happen. I listened to the exact same presentation that you did. I know exactly what's coming up in terms, in terms of the possible water treatment, whatever it may be. There are 2 or 3 at least that were presented to us, options that will come about. Here's the real facts and the truth in preparing and approving and presenting a budget. The question of whether a water treatment plant is going to be required will be settled in the next few months. In the next few months, we will be discussing midterm amendments to the budget. We do not need to stand and say, well, this could possibly happen, so we better just just throw everything else out the window and plan on this to happen. We certainly can't ignore it, and we're not ignoring it. We're going to be discussing this. This budget is not set in stone, to quote one of our officials here in town, and it will be reviewed over the next few months as these situations develop. It is a little bit unnerving to know that there's some of these things that could be coming up, but that's not what you can, if you're kind of close to begin with on the budget, those aren't things that you can just throw in. And in return, because you keep dodging this issue of what would you do if we want to eliminate dealing with the reserves in this budget, it would have to begin with eliminating the police department.
Well, no, Gary, that's not what I'm saying.
I'm sorry.
No, Gary, that
You're
is not
talking
what
about
I'm
$1.5
saying at all.
million.
I'm not saying we have to put that away today, but what I am saying is we are ignoring it in this budget.
We are not ignoring it, Kathy. It's not being ignored. This is planned. We have had our financial director go through and discuss this whole thing with the organizations, the Colorado organizations, municipal organizations that oversee this kind of thing and pass judgment on whether you're doing the right thing or not. You're playing down the idea of best practices. But best practices are exactly why we're here.
Gary, best practices are days cash on hand that pay the bills for a minimum of 2 months.
If you have no reserves.
We have not set aside any more reserves to address any of these issues.
Well, what we have done is review this over the last several months to the extent that absolutely every detail, I've checked on this myself. I've talked with the officials in Colorado that know what the right thing is to do here. I've talked to the leaders in other locations that have dealt with this same kind of thing. And what we're doing is nowhere near being a situation where it's borderline. We are completely within the realm of good common sense, and even within the realm of operating your own budget. I made that real clear
Well, yes,
in a presentation
Gary,
that
we're doing
some
that,
may have read.
but we're operating at status quo.
I'll call for the question.
Well, I agree that we definitely have to work on it. And to say we're running status quo, I think we've really stepped up. The city has stepped up. All the city managers, everybody that has been involved has stepped up. We do have to operate, but as we've discussed in one of our meetings, that our work sessions, that we would be sitting down and doing this. And to say we're going to start in February, we're going to start in February, and we're going to really work on it. But as Kathy said, there's going to be some tough decisions that's got to be made, but it won't be made tonight. But it's going to be a process, and it is not going to fall on Forest's shoulders. It's on ours. So as far as best practices, I've had some conversations too with people out of the area, and they were very encouraging on where we are at, based on what we've done. There's a lot of, as Jenny said, municipalities that aren't even close to this, and in as much, if not more, trouble with what they're having to face, but we are doing something. So we're gaining some ground, but we do have to gain more. So that's where we also go into that part about tax-based businesses. Annexation. There's stuff that's got to be done for us all to continue on. So as people sit and look at us up here to manage the money of the city and what the crew at the city are taking care of, yeah, there's some tough decisions, but we're all in this together still. It is our community. It's not just the 5 of us up here. Yeah. had to make sure you count that right. Got 5 of us up here and everybody that's working for the city. It's up to all of us, and we got to have the support of the community. So it's, yeah, there's going to be tough decisions, and they will not fall unforced. It comes right here to this table. So to say we're running status quo, I think we're better than that, but we're all greenhorns, and we're all in this to make it work, and we all have our part in it.
You know, Rob has said several times at these work sessions that he's now asked to work with less money, increase costs, and never once has he been asked not to do something.
That's, yeah. So to that as well is in what his crew provide to this city, that honestly, there should be a charge for it to the community members. There's stuff that they do that they do it because they care about the community. They care about the people in the community. So it comes to that point now where there's a lot of things we have to look at. Straight up. I mean, and I'll say it again. The people that think that they're going to just clean their yard into the street, be prepared. It's not going to be, hey man, you need to quit doing that. Let's get it cleaned up. There's going to be a fine proposed to that, and it will be stood behind. And I, as council or the mayor, will stand behind them, that if the code officer goes out and writes you a ticket for sweeping your leaves out into the street, just pay the fine, man, because as far as I'm concerned, there's no mercy about it. It's a real thing.
Well, that's great, but we don't have 2 code officers to do that. I mean, right now we've got a code officer that's basically doing animal control.
One step at a time, and that's where we're at. You're right. There's a lot of steps to this, and we're going to have to work through it. So I'm just throwing these little ones out there.
And you're saying all these things, Kathy, with a further propose or hope of cutting the budget when Rob already works on a shoestring. The police force works on a shoestring.
Council having to decide what services we are willing to do without to provide Chief and Rob with the extra money they need.
What are those services? What would you propose? I'm just curious. We've had work session after work session, and you've never come out with any solid way to save, $14 million.
You look at Parks and Rec because they're not essential services.
Yes, they are essential. I think taking care of the kids in this community is absolutely essential, Kathy. It's the very basis of what's going to make Monte Vista's future. If you start cutting out Park and Rec and you start taking away those services and you cut out Kids Connection and those kinds of things, no one's going to have a reason to move here. I'm courting people who have children and people who want to come into this community and build it and raise their families here and raise their children here and fill our schools. And you take away the minimal services that we already have in Parks and Rec, and do you think anyone's going to want to move to Monte Vista? Guess what? On any side, every town on any side of us has a Park and Rec department, and that would be a very grave mistake. I'm sorry.
When we don't have water and sewer, they're not going to come here either. Or police department, because I'll pick police department and public works over the rest.
Oh, I have no proposal to remove the police department. I'm actually in the field of trying to increase their wages and make their job a little bit more well recognized. I think everyone in the city works on a very low wage scale, and those are things that are a huge concern to me. And I don't think Park and Rec is going to supply them with anything. We've got to look at other avenues. And I'm not saying that Monte Vista's shiny and gold and everything's perfect, because it's not. We have a lot of work to do. We've inherited some issues and some problems from years and years and years ago that we're trying to work with. But I don't think taking away services, and I don't think a reduction in force anywhere is probably the answer. I just don't.
I think it's going to have to come from somewhere.
Well, hopefully we can find a place that isn't Park and Rec and reduction in force. And I
think in the next few years, there isn't going to be that money available.
We'll see. We revisit the budget here again in February. We always do a midterm look at the budget again, and we'll see what happens. We'll just see what happens, you know.
Well, we know Forrest has got some stuff that we've been discussing, that there's plans. So as far as the city goes, fear not, we are on top of this as far as the budget goes, and we're everybody's input is very well respected. But let's get to point of order, and because we will be discussing this again in February, obviously. So let's go to point of order of our ordinance. We need a motion to accept ordinance number 890. No, we already have.
We've already had
more.
first.
Yeah, you have a motion and a
Let's have
second.
the vote. I'm sorry.
Counselor Segola?
Aye.
Counselor Lorenz?
No.
Counselor Ellsworth?
Aye.
Counselor Johnson?
Aye.
Mayor Becker?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1.
Thank you. I do look forward to having further discussions on, there's definitely these issues to work on. So a simpler issue is ordinance 891 on first reading this evening. That would be to allow for the creation and operation of RV parks within the city limits. We had some discussion at the last meeting about the major thing where we tabled it was to talk about time of occupancy. And I did some research on that. It was really interesting that, in fact, I looked at Good Samaritans, Good Sam's, I guess they call themselves now, KOA, and all these other operations, like the big ones, looked at some smaller ones. It's really interesting that, for the most part, those big organizations don't have limits. In fact, they have different rates and schedules to do that. Except in super busy resort areas where they might have limited stays. I did kind of come up with, I think, a thought process of this, and in this ordinance, added an additional section that would say the maximum occupancy time limit for any one occupant of the RV park will not exceed 4 months unless the applicant can provide a compelling argument for extended occupancy, and that would be in the approval process. So with this ordinance, there's a planning commission review of it before it comes to the city council for its review. So the applicant could make a compelling argument, perhaps. I'm not sure exactly what that'd be, but it would create a 4-month cap, which I think, for seasonal, for our seasons anyway, is probably okay. I mean, I didn't go down to the level that's like, okay, so if they leave for 1 day and come back, is that okay? We are seeing, South Fork's got a new RV park that, or newer, I think, and I don't know if it's new owners, but they've actually set it up so now they can be open 12 months a year. And they just started that this fall. It's kind of a work in progress, but they are going to provide for that occupancy. A lot of the parks in our area are seasonal. Now, Fun Valley, for instance, is closed in the winter. But we have better weather in the winter. So I think having that as part of the application process and letting the Planning Commission discuss it, and hopefully the council as well, would probably resolve that on a general basis. So my recommendation after adding that was that you would approve this on first reading this evening.
I will say I read through that research that you did for us for the time limitations on that. That was kind of eye-opening to me, and apparently limitations are not necessarily a strong requirement or a deterrent one way or the other. So, plus we have the option of adjusting that sometime in the future if that did come up to be a problem. But that solves a lot. I appreciate your input on that. I would subsequently move to approve ordinance number 891, an ordinance to the City Council of the City of Monte Vista, Colorado, amending Monte Vista Municipal Code Chapter 12, zoning to allow for the creation and operation of RV parks within the city limits.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept ordinance number 891. City Council of the City of Monte Vista, Colorado, amending Monte Vista Municipal Code, Chapter 12, zoning to allow for the creation and operation of RV parks within the city limits. Is there any more discussion? Nita?
Counselor Ellithorpe?
Aye.
Counselor Segala?
Aye.
Counselor Lorenz?
Aye.
Counselor Johnson?
Aye.
Mayor Becker?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. I think I'll pass the clock.
Does that mean Nita's reading the click one?
Yes, sir.
Good evening.
All on an eggshell.
Can I call for a vote?
Yes, you may. Point of order.
At the last meeting, you guys heard the proposal for ordinance 892, the enacting Chapter 6, Article 5 of the Monte Vista Municipal Code pertaining to backyard chickens, and redoing the schedule, or excuse me, the table. Thank you. And tonight, I ask that you approve this.
You're not going to do it. You want me to do it? Okay. I actually, I was looking at the harvesting. I didn't know there was going to be harvesting of chickens. That's in there. Sorry, that threw me. I actually move that we approve upon second reading the ordinance enacting to allow for the creation, oh no, I'm on the wrong one, to allow the Monte Vista Municipal Code pertaining to backyard chickens, Chapter 6, Article 5.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to accept the ordinance 892 second reading enacting Chapter 6, Article 5 of the Monte Vista Municipal Code pertaining to backyard chickens. Is there any more discussion? Nita?
Counselor Segala?
Aye.
Counselor Lorenz?
Aye.
Counselor Johnson?
Aye.
Counselor Ellithorpe?
Aye.
Mayor Becker?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Good evening. So, the title of this in and of itself seems a little confusing, but it states what this is designed to do. So, in the past, the City Council wanted to have an opportunity to abate, we'll say drug houses, but actually the list of illegal activities which are particularly heinous, if you will, including human trafficking, sexual exploitation of children, facilitation of gang activity, etc., are serious problems. And previously we adopted Ordinance 871, which created Section 51300 of Municipal Code. And it had three provisions. One that created all these things to be a nuisance, which, you know, our nuisance penalties are fairly, they're adequate. They're very customary, if you will. But the other thing that it created was an opportunity for the city to take a civil action against the owner of the property. Unfortunately, there was an error in the original ordinance that assigned the jurisdiction to the municipal court. And under CRS 1613-505-1, the district court actually has the jurisdiction over actions pursuant to the Colorado Contraband Forfeiture Act. The council looked at that, and the next city attorney that was present said, okay, we need to fix that. And when it was fixed, the opportunity to file a civil case under the Colorado Contraband Forfeiture Act was extinguished in that ordinance. I wasn't really quite aware of that until the police chief came and talked to me about, you know, we have a couple of properties that this might be a very useful thing to have. So, you know, I read the ordinances and I said, wow, that is not in there anymore. Talked to Mike Trujillo, and he apologized for not being here tonight. He said he was sure I could explain this. So essentially what this ordinance would do this evening is reinstate, repeal Ordinance 880 and 871 and restate Municipal Code Section 51300, which would preserve the nuisance status of those buildings, dwelling structures, trailers, etc., but would also reinstate, in addition to the properties described in this section, shall be subject to seizure and forfeiture by the city upon having been declared a public nuisance and after notice and hearing and upon order of the district court or court of competent jurisdiction. So essentially what that is, reinstates is the opportunity for the city to go after properties where these activities are rampant. You know, people say, what do you want to do about drug houses? Well, under current law, in our code, there's not a lot, but this is another tool where if we have building, structure, et cetera, that is a repeat offender of any of these kind of things, we can actually file a case in district court and seek to seize the property. So that is the gist of it, and I'm sure the chief would support the notion that you pass this. I certainly do. I think it is just another, it's a useful tool that we probably won't have to use very often. I hope not. But I do actually think that if we used it once, it would send a very clear message to, you know, we have landlords say, well, I don't think anything's going on there. Well, the clear message is that you need to know what's going on in your property, whether you're the owner or the landlord. And so this is a good opportunity. I almost had to say to take a bite out of crime because that came to me, but it is a good opportunity for the city to address this problem, and I hope that you would pass it this evening on first reading.
I would move to pass Ordinance 893, repealing Ordinance number 880 and Ordinance number 871 and replacing Municipal Code Section 5-1-300.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we pass Ordinance 893, repealing Ordinance number 880 and Ordinance number 871 and replacing Municipal Code Section 5-1-300. Is there any more discussion?
I would just say it seems like an important ordinance to pass. I think that's pretty clear.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Chief, you have any discussion on this?
No, and it's not silver bullet either.
No. Nita?
Counselor Johnson?
All right.
Counselor Ellithorpe?
Aye.
Counselor Lorenz?
Aye.
Counselor Segola?
Aye.
Mayor Becker?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Are you doing the MOU?
I'm standing here, so I might as well. Pretty familiar with this one. So this MOU has been going on for 4 or 5 years? 4 years now. Basically, it's an agreement between the city and these partners here, the Chamber of Commerce and the Friends of the San Luis Valley National Wildlife Refuge, Inc. to facilitate Cranes Festival. The city's part is actually fairly simple. It asks us to agree to reserve, arrange, and provide city-owned buildings, which is Sky High, the all-purpose or multi-purpose building, the Valley Theater for the Crane Festival, and provide for such buildings proper functioning, including but not limited to operation, lighting, electrical, Wi-Fi, restrooms, and HVAC systems, which is what we do. So they do all the heavy lifting and all the hard work and put together this great event for our community. Certainly this is an expense that would be part of our normal operations of these facilities. And between the Recreation Department and their management of Sky High Park and Public Works, we get this every year, and as you all know, it's one of my favorite events. This is really cool. So I would request authorize the mayor to sign this MOU this evening, and we continue to do this great benefit to our community.
I would certainly agree with that. Is there, the one thing I wasn't clear on, is there any change in this MOU from previous?
Not on the city's part?
Not on the city's part, only some cost-sharing changes between the Friends and the Chamber.
Okay.
We're trying to balance those expenses so that the Chamber is doing, the vendor part, which they have been doing for several years, and then Friends are, they run the tours and the speakers and then the presentations through the theater. So it's really just juggling those expenses a little bit, but nothing,
okay.
No change from the city standpoint.
I did see that one entry between the Chamber and the Friends, basically. So, yeah. Well, I would move that we approve the memorandum of understanding between Monte Vista Crane Festival and Kids Crane Festival and the City of Monte Vista.
I would second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the MOU for the Crane Festival. Any more discussion?
Do we have to sign that?
Yes, that would be appropriate.
Yes.
Well, then I would amend my motion to include having this prepared and signed by the mayor this evening.
Any more discussion? Nita?
Counselor Ellithorpe?
Aye.
Counselor Lorenz?
Aye.
Counselor Segola?
Aye.
Counselor Johnson?
Aye.
Mayor Becker?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Jenny?
Good.
Finance. Yeah.
I'm just going to apologize now. I'm not 100% tonight, so I'm sorry. But good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm happy to be here tonight.
Excuse me, could I explain why she's not 100%?
Do we have to know this?
The city clerk attempted to kill our finance director with a Christmas tree today, so just thought I'd point that out.
And there's a reason there's a bench hanging outside my office.
It looks nice in here.
Looks terrific.
If you want to know this story, come see me later. But we're not going to put that on record. All right, well, I'm happy to be here tonight to present the October 31st, 2018 financial report. I'm happy to report this evening that as of October 31st, 83% of the fiscal year has passed, and we're sitting really well in most everything. So to get started, as I mentioned, we're at 83%, but in our general fund, we're at 92% of our revenues for the year, with 2 more months to go. As Forrest alluded to, we're sitting better than we thought we were going to be sitting. So with that given, our total revenue right now is at $2,673,874 in the general fund. Total expenditures in the general fund as of this date are at 75%. So our revenues are far exceeding our expenditures, which is leading to a pretty healthy increase in our general fund. We're currently sitting in the general fund balance at $869,000 and some change. So I do just want to point out that we do have November and December to get through, but I think that we are going to finish the year with a higher fund balance than what we anticipated. So, moving on to the water fund, we're at 99% of our revenue for the year that we anticipated through our budget. We probably will come in pretty close, just because a decrease in water usage this time of year, but at least we're right where we thought we were going to be. So, total revenues for the water fund are $896,469. At the end of the month, we were at 72% of our expenditures. So there again, we're coming in a little over 10% of what we anticipated less spending. So the cash balance in the water fund is at $1,135,756. In the water fund, the revenues exceed the expenditures by $167,905, which is bringing our fund balance in the water fund to $1,918,489. So moving on to the sewer fund, we're at 59% of the approved budget in the sewer fund, and as we've discussed in our past work sessions, the budget for there, I'm not exactly sure why it was anticipated so high, but we're actually sitting where we should be sitting. I know that number looks a little bit low, but it is on point for where we've been in years past. So, expenditures at the end of the month in the sewer fund, we're at 54% of the budget. So the revenues and the expenditures are staying in check of what we thought they were going to be. So, I guess not what we thought we would be, but they're trending together, which is what we want. So currently the fund balance in the water fund, or excuse me, in the sewer fund is $3,843,253. The revenues and expenditures in the sewer fund continue to come in way below budget. Again, that's just because the 3-year model and the 3-year average wasn't followed when they did the sewer budget. So it is coming in a little bit different, but the numbers, again, like I said, are on track with what we've done in years past. So unless you have any questions for me, that's all I have for you tonight.
Go home.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny.
Thanks, Jim.
Forrest, you have your report, sir?
We love you.
Oh, let me start with the good thing is we already covered a number of things. I will let you know that we did the Sky High walkthrough. Rob Vance and I did that, and Mayor Pro Tem Segala was able to attend with us. We actually only had one consultant show up and another one that was interested that couldn't make the date. So it was a good walkthrough. The cool thing about the young lady that showed up, which I know that their firm's working on a bid, but she's from the Valley. Went to Sargent High School, swam in the pool when it was open, played basketball in the gym, so she was very familiar with the facility. That was very helpful, and I'm sure that based upon, and her family still lives here, that will help sell her firm on doing this. They have offices in Denver, and they also have an office in Durango. Proposals due back by December 12th on that. And then once we have those, then we'll be discussing those with the committee. We just call it the committee, but anyway, we'll then have a meeting with them. We'll kind of go through it. And get this awarded. You know, we know that we do have a planning grant, so that is progressing. In your packet is a grant monitoring letter from DOLA. Christy Dune came down with sorry, I lose the name there. Yeah, sorry. In any case, she and another representative came down and kill me because I know her personally. But in any case, he came down and we did a review of where we're sitting financially with our reporting to the state on this. And essentially, we did really well. She said she's pleased to inform you, the mayor, that the records appear to be in order and well organized. Staff was informative and focused on the completion of the project, which we are very much so. And we talked about some future projects, including wastewater, mentioned that. So anyway, just put that in there so that you can see that we had that monitoring and that went well. A reminder that we have a special work session on Monday, December 10th with Sam and Matt, and he's contacted me to confirm that we're doing that. And so he'll be here at 6 p.m. On the 10th. I did want to request this evening that council authorize the closing of City Hall on January 19th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Is that January or December?
Did I write? I knew
You
it.
still read January?
You were thinking, I could
Yes.
see your wheels turning.
The late one. Wow, I did that too. I corrected that, but December, please.
Thank you.
Yeah, January is a little late for that, but yes, December 19th. I thought I corrected that, but apparently not. So if the council's okay with that, we'll be closed for a few hours that day. Also, just calendar items, the city is closed, of course, closed for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. It's Monday and Tuesday this year, December 24th and 25th. We will be open on New Year's Eve. We just always have been, but we will be closed on January 1st, got the right month there, of 2019, even put the right year in, so I guess that was good. And then the other item, just as a discussion point for you all, often we have not had a December 2nd council meeting in December. It would fall on the 20th if we did. It's strictly up to you whether y'all want to have it, but we did, the one thing that was kind of nagging us to get done was honestly that the mill levy certification, because that's, got to be done, obviously. We accomplished that this evening, so we kind of discussed it with the managers, and I don't think we have anything at that time. So if you all want to decide not to have that meeting right before Christmas.
So is that just a head nod?
Yeah.
Is that we're not motion, we're just going,
Right, because you're actually required to have your first meeting of the month. You're not required to have a second meeting. So, y'all are good with that?
I think that's a great idea. Give you guys a break.
So that would mean that we come back on January 3rd? That would be the first Thursday, or are we going to change that? What? Yep. Okay. All right.
And by then, all the fog of New Year's should have cleared. Whatever that means. So unless you all have any questions for me, that is all I have this evening.
Just a quick question on the email that you sent out in regards to that potluck. Is that something we can just email our answers back to you on the council?
Well, if the council wishes to authorize some funds for that,
I think we need to discuss that too.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so when you get to the, I'd like to call that council's corner, but the council committee, commission, and council reports, you could discuss that and let us know.
Okay, Kathy. Don't forget that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, there was something else I had, but I will think of it in 2 hours. So, also, you did want to give a report tonight? Okay, so, Kids Connection's not on here, but if we could add her for number 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Forrest. Chief Rosecrans. I like being official like that.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors. So first order of business, new look.
Nice.
I want to know what you guys think.
Very nice. Very nice.
Nice.
So it has a couple different really cool options. One is that we can move some of the things on our belt up to the small one. A couple of tactical considerations tonight. The word tactical seems to come out when you see Molly. not our intent at all. Belts, look at the back, there's some weight bearing, load bearing issues that we want to kind of try to contend with. The other is you have some of us that kind of get stuck in an office. Taking off your shirt and your vest is very hard to do.
Nice.
Back is not hard to do at all.
Wow.
So I can do that, I can set it down, I can breathe, relax a little bit, especially if there's like a foot chase or it's overly cold outside and then it's overly turned up inside, or vice versa. Pretty cool feature. About half of it was paid with a grant, a federal grant, so we'll be getting that unfortunately in 2019. So it'll be a finance director's nightmare, but the good part is the money will be coming. So hopefully, if you're approved, you should see all of us wearing that, so it'll be kind of consistent. And when we do make the decision to move, whatever we're going to move onto the vest and off of the belt, we will stay consistent with that as well.
Very nice.
Wow.
Nice.
Glad to see it.
It's nice. It actually does really change. It actually hurt my back at first because you can tell how much it changes the weight. But quickly it went away. I think we all just kind of get used to standing weird because everything's right here at the belt. So anyway, events, Coffee with a Cop. Changed it to Saturday. It was at Mountain View on the 1st. I think there was a lot going on. It was not the best day in the world, but it was not well attended. But that's okay. Got me acclimated. We did have a 7 or 8 turnout. But the goal is to increase that significantly by having it on a Saturday, having it in an area that's bigger. We lost Java Dave, so it really wasn't an option, but they've been great, and I think it'll be a good future Coffee with a Cop location, but I'm going to do it on the 2nd Saturday of the month. So from now on, 2nd Saturday, this January, the 12th, will be the next one. 2019, January 12th, 8 to 10, Mountain View. Everyone's invited. I don't have an agenda. In fact, it's just the opposite. My agenda is to be there and listen to you. So if you have something that you want to bring up in an official or unofficial capacity, that's what it's for. Have some coffee and or breakfast, because they do have really good food. Neighborhood Watch. We had a little fun. So Neighborhood Watch is changing. I think we kind of put that out a month or 2 ago that we were going to kind of change how our meetings went, and it was going to be educational still, yes. It was going to be interactive, which we've done some of. So we did some of that, and it was going to be an encouraging opportunity to get our districts going and to drill down into the neighborhoods and see if we can't get a little more of what Neighborhood Watch is really about, and that's taking care of your neighbors, knowing what's going on, having kind of the warm fuzzy to call when you see something, knowing what that something is. And that's really what hopefully this next meeting, January 21st, at the Chamber of Commerce, 6 p.m. is going to be all about. So I really would like to invite council to be there as hopefully the leaders of your districts. And we're going to focus on districts. We will have some education and some interaction, but our goal will be to change that perspective a little bit.
And it's where?
Chamber.
At the Chamber.
Information Center.
At 6.
Yes.
January 21st, you said?
Yes. Crime Stoppers, really going well. We've paid out $750 this year for tips that led directly to arrests. That's very cool. We have a balance of, I think, Mark, 16,000? Oh, I was trying not to put you on the spot. A lot. Over $10,000. It's never been that kind of balance in the history of San Luis Valley Crime Stoppers. So we as a committee have done a lot of work, and so thank you to your Crime Stoppers treasurer and vice president over there to get a lot done, and hopefully we'll be able to put that to good use. January 29th is the next board meeting. And while we're not asking for attendance necessarily at the board meeting, we are asking for suggestions. What we look for is ways to interact with the community, use that money for the best purposes that we can. And one of the things that we're always trying to do is increase our ways of catching criminals. And Crime Stoppers is just a tool for law enforcement, and just as Neighborhood Watch is, just as the police are, just as everything kind of works together. So kind of keep that in mind. And we have Mark's working on a new project through SLV Voices where maybe we can get some more publicity out of everything, not only from how it works standpoint, but from a financial donations piece as well. So that's kind of our events. The next part I'm pretty proud of. So it's statistics for 2017, 2019. I didn't really want to shoot myself in the foot and get this cart before the horse, but this is our last, I was hoping you'd cancel the 20th, and this will be our last chance to talk until the new year. But the statistics are there. I don't know, do you guys have the report? Yes. All right, so I will talk a little bit about, for the citizens and those that don't have a copy, but burglaries are down 15%. That's pretty cool. And our clearance rate's 20%. That's in line with the national average. Okay, at least we're back in line. Thefts are down 9%. I'd like to see that better, but our clearance rate's 55%. So every other theft we solved. That's really good. That's really good. Auto theft down 17%. Clearance rate of 60%. That's good as well. And clearances are tricky though, because clearance doesn't always mean you caught the bad guy, but you definitely found the car. So in this particular case though, we have caught the bad guy and found the car. DUI arrests are up 90%. We've almost doubled our DUI arrests. That's a direct effort of our interdiction. So I know I've had some complaints about the number of traffic stops going out there. I am sorry. We don't always catch exactly who we're trying to catch, speeding or not using their blinker, but I don't think everybody gets a ticket, and that's kind of the point. We're trying to make contact, we're trying to show that we're out there and we're being diligent, and it's leading to this. I think DUI is one of the most heinous traffic-related crimes that can happen to anyone when it results in a crash. It's just bad. It's bad for the individual that made the poor choice. It's bad for those who get hit. It's bad for everybody related. And DUI, unfortunately, is way more prevalent than any of us understand because it's associated with an illness, and that's difficult. However, the statistics say one DUI, one individual probably drives drunk 100 times before they're caught. The intervention is what changes that. So we almost have to catch them. You have to catch them. Something has to happen for that cycle. It's the same concept with domestic violence. There's only one way to stop that cycle, and that's intervention. It doesn't always have to be arrest, but that's why it costs you $10,000. That's why there's 7 to 10 trips to the court. That's why you have to do all these things, because that's how it works. And unfortunately, that's what we've concentrated on. In that same grain, traffic accidents are down 18%. I'd like to take credit for that. The reality is it's probably the weather as much as anything. But again, we are out there, we're visible. Hopefully people are paying a little more attention to their driving, less to their phone, less to their kids, those kind of things, we hope. The unique one, which I'd like to talk about, because it's one of the things that everybody really wanted to focus on, is our controlled substances arrest. They're actually identical. They're 2% up. So basically, 54 people were arrested in 2018, 53 people were arrested in 2017. What's different is we have twice as many distribution cases as personal use, individual possession cases. That's the difference. We have 2 dogs that are out there working hard. They're deciding what they're going to focus on, and it's working. So having looked at that, that is amazing to me, that they've been able to keep the numbers consistent while the low-hanging fruit has been dealt with. It's now the more troublesome ones to deal with. So the officers have done an amazing job. Please thank them. And a lot of these cases are going to court. And I think the frustration with the community sometimes is that a possession case, they're right back out on the street. Not so much with distribution. There's some real teeth in charging the distribution cases. So that's a good thing as well. Hopefully, I know we create voids, those voids get filled, but maybe 2 voids, both don't get filled. 3 voids, only a third get filled. So I think that's a good thing. Statistics that I know you don't want to hear is 1/3 of the DUI arrests were marijuana related. 4th graders are getting suspended from school for having marijuana. High school has marijuana, considerable marijuana. So, and I'll probably be coming to you hopefully in February. We'll get our black and our gray marijuana funds, and we'll figure out how to use those, because it's exactly what HIDA recommended was going to happen. It's exactly what we know happens. There's a lot of that law that we didn't understand, and the biggest population that's going to suffer is our juveniles. And in this particular case, that's 21 and under, not just 18 and under. So keep that in mind. So if you can be really diligent about your use, you know, not pointing any fingers, because that's not the point, but there's going to be access issues. And know that there's not going to be any buys. If your child steals your marijuana, you're accountable for that. So please be careful with that. It's a pretty serious issue, and I know it's one none of us really want to deal with, and it's embarrassing at the very least, and the repercussions are fairly significant because some of the federal money that goes into schools can be affected. So I know the school board is freaking out as well. It's a big issue that we're going to have to discuss, and hopefully one that we can discuss in a bigger picture of an SRO and someone in the schools and how that works and the security associated with that when we get to those issues. Administratively, Mario gave his resignation today, so he's definitely gone. We'll be replacing him hopefully very soon though, because we do have two in the process. One is already a certified police officer, the other is in the academy, so he'll be slower to get on the street, but both seem to be viable candidates. So the good news is we have something on the horizon. Bad news is the change is happening very fast, way too fast. Code enforcement. So Shane wanted me to talk about a few things. One, snow removal. Sidewalks have become kind of a little bit of a sore spot in several areas, so businesses and individuals alike. So don't forget, you have a very limited amount of time. Once the storm passes, get out there, clean your sidewalk. Do it for you, do it for your neighbors, do it for your mail carrier. Just think about everybody involved with that. And if you absolutely can't, remember what we've said. There are options out there. We as a community probably can rise up, but not saying anything and just letting it pile up is not going to be an option. So kind of remember that too. Abandoned vehicles. So the ordinance says the junk vehicles shall not be left on property, kind of period. So that means they have to be registered, they have to be functioning. So we're really putting a push on those type of vehicles, specifically in the street, but the ordinance does carry on to private property. Our goal is to kind of let you do what you have to do in some respects on your own property, especially in the short term, but not on the street. You got to clean up the streets. Rob needs them out of the way. We need them out of the way. The firemen need them out of the way. On and on and on. And the secondary reason is it's just an eyesore. I mean, it's one thing to have a classic car collection and working through it in your garage. It's another to have your own personal salvage yard. We probably should try to avoid that. It's kind of a mess. Alley issues. He brought up several that are. I think alleys get to be kind of a secondary parking, a secondary trash pile, a lot of things. Definitely second on anybody's thought process. So we would ask that please kind of remember alleys are very important, especially for first responders. We use them, the fire department uses them less because of the size of their trucks, but there are times where it is very tactical to hit a certain area or fire from more than one location. So alleys do serve a purpose, and I know Forrest has threatened several times for me to pay attention to alleys, so we're going to start because it is about half of the streets, and we typically like to stay off of the alleys from a code enforcement because it's scary back there. I mean, I just encourage you to drive your own alley, kind of take a look. If you can get through the weeds, that would be your first goal, and then second, well, make sure you don't hit anything that's buried in those weeds because they're kind of a mess. So please take a look at your alley. Now's the time of year to do it. Things are dying. The snow's knocking some of that down. Maybe get a good look at what your alley looks like and try to keep it that way come spring. Especially on the parking side of things, we really don't like towing vehicles just because they're in our way, but the reality is that's the kind of vehicle that's going to get towed. If it's in front of a hydrant, if it's in front of our access to something, that's just really bad. Tactically, it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to avoid doing something right just because we can't get access to a public right-of-ways. So kind of keep that in mind. And then the last one, this has come up a lot, and I actually feel for these poor guys. I mean, semi-truck drivers have a tough job. They come home, and they only have a few hours or a few days to be with their family. But you got to think about what that huge truck does, parked on the street, running all night long, next to your intake for your heater. There's just no way around it. There's no part of the law that allows it to be in a public residential area for more than a few hours, really. It says you have to have permission other than, I think, 60 minutes. So delivery access is the only exception. The only other exception is permission from the city and the owner. That's a little tricky to do, and that's only, I think, for 24 hours. So that's a lot of work just to be there for a few hours. And the reality is, it just can't happen. And I don't know where we take it. Towing a big rig is a real pain for some people. We can get it done. There are options to tow semis. But I've heard it enough. It comes up every month, and I really do have a soft spot for those guys. But the reality is the legislators have spoken. It's against the law. And running parked street, property, alley, it doesn't matter. Without permission, outside of a residential area, in a commercial zone only, that's it, and with permission. So try to keep that in mind. And I know there's going to be a complaint the first time we drag somebody's livelihood off to the impound. There's going to be a problem. But I don't know what to do when you can only placate the person suffering so long because they're right. I can't do anything about it. We've made excuses. We've tried to push it. Hey, it's the holidays. I mean, you name it. We've tried it. But at the end of the day, it's not supposed to be there. And that's really tough on us. I know Force hears about it regularly, and I'm sure you guys have probably heard about it. So these are my pleas to the citizens, because we have enforcement options. We just really hate to take them for snow removal, abandoned vehicles, alleyway stuff, tractor trailers, all that stuff. It's just because we know what a burden it is. It's a big deal. And it typically affects very few. But when you haven't slept all night, or the diesel fuel, the diesel smoke's coming in your heater, and when it's you, there's no question it's annoying. So that's my report. Any questions at all?
What about like semi trucks without a trailer?
Just the tractor, it's the same. So actually it's just specifically addressed in two different places. The tractor is never legal either. The trailer is illegal in several places because of its size. So actually, I think most of them fall beyond that 10-ton or whatever it is. I can't remember the exact, but there's several different places that one and or both, or just about anywhere.
And then I did have one more, just a concern. This past summer, down the area, there was a fire, and I looked out my window or out my front door and I go, whoa, and within 2 minutes there were so many vehicles out on the road that the fire department couldn't even get there, and they had to like go all the way around, and then when the fire was almost put out, there were cars like just parked, like all in the intersections, and just kind of curious, is there anything that can be done, about that?
Yes and no. So we actually had a meeting in one of our trainings for 2 Wednesdays in November where the fire department spent an hour with them talking about some of the things we can do, because it's a fine line for us blocking traffic and blocking. So imagine sitting in a cop car with all your lights on and an individual going right between you and another cop car, missing you by this much. What in the world would make that person think that if they could squeeze through between 2 cop cars, it was authorized? But that's exactly what happens. So my guys park so they don't get yelled at by the fire department, because imagine turning that monster truck however they're going to come. We don't know, but we have to leave plenty of space. And you're not right there able to stop. You're hopefully using your car, and you go down to make sure nobody's in the house, and you come back and cars have passed your car, because it's just a cop car. That can't mean anything that I should be able to do whatever I want, right?
Those flashing lights.
That's there every day. So I don't know. I get extremely frustrated sometimes about what what the thought process is of someone who passes a car on a way to a fire that has gone out of their way just to be nosy. That, I don't know. I hope that doesn't happen when my house is on fire, because I want them to get there as soon as possible.
You know, because I looked and I'm like, this is absolutely horrible.
It's crazy. Yeah.
You know, like, what if it's your house? You know, and I'm like, man, it's just. So I was just kind of curious. You know?
I don't know the solution. We average 2 people on the street. So, you know, you have 2 ends to a street and 1 house in the middle. Our best, probably our most effective safety feature would be as close to the house as possible, which is exactly what the fire department doesn't want. They want as much room to fight the fire as possible. Where's the hydrant? How much hose are we going to have to put out? How many engines? Can we fight it from close proximity, or do we have to fight it from far, depending on where the propane tank is located and or the gas main? Or there's all these fire-related things that I don't even use as part of my decision on where to park the car. I'm trying to park the car to stop traffic at the end of the street, but I can't stay with the car because I got to go find out what's going on with the fire, because we're the first ones almost always on scene. And then you try to go back to your car, and it's already, the street's already filled with people going, wow, that's pretty cool. No, it's not. Somebody's house is on fire. That's really bad. So I don't know. You know, sir, I really wish I could tell you. And just ask the public to really have, you know, to have some respect for those kind of situations, because they're horrible and they're really hard to manage. And you need room to let the fire department do their work, and yet we can't lock it down, otherwise the fire department can't get in there. And one of the biggest pet peeves of the fire department is us getting in the way. Second biggest pet peeve is this. We got to be there with the second. Don't want to be part of the first. Third.
Yeah. On the semi thing, do we have designated areas that are not working?
Yes. So co-op. There are some commercial, industrial, authorized. We don't have a truck stop per se. Co-op as close as it gets. And if anybody really wanted an economic development idea, I'd sure think about that. But yes, there are some areas outside of residential. They can have permission. Mountain King, all they got to do is ask. Anything on the other side, outside of the city, all you'd have to do is say, "Can I park my truck here?" That's all they need. Inside the city, it's a different animal. So ordinances are different by far in city limits than outside.
So a semi can't park in my parking lot.
Minus the short-term exception with permission that I think is, what is the delivery option, 60 minutes or something? It's almost not worth asking.
Basically a short-term delivery allowance.
Right. If you don't think you can literally just pull up and drop, you can get a short-term, like an extended delivery option. That's really the only exception. But no, not inside at all. The only exception to that might be something on a Sequoia out there. I don't know how that's zoned, like by, you know, kind of across from the railroad tracks. Some of that, depending on how that's zoned. But again, it's permission. And the railroad, I guarantee they're not going to give you permission. But some, like Absolute Shine, probably could give you permission and be outside of the proper zone. But it'd be very few. But we'd have to check on that to be sure. It's pretty tough. It just takes probably some pre-planning on their part.
Can they park if they're not running all night, like in the summer months? They're just simply not allowed no matter what.
Yeah.
There's 2 factors there. One there is if they're running, but the other thing is the weight of the vehicle.
Right.
Right, so they're particularly precluded from parking in residential streets because of the road, how it's constructed.
Right.
It's really not built for that kind of load bearing. I mean, you run a moving van down there or not, they go, oh, you got a moving van from here for an hour. I was sitting there overnight, night after night, honestly, on the ability to grade or those people.
Right, so it's aside from the public nuisance of diesel smoke and that stuff, it's just the general, the truck and everything.
I think most city streets want to stay around the 7,000 pound.
Yeah.
Most passenger diesel pickups push that limit. My pickup, mayor's, well, yours is gas, but most of the diesel engines push things real close to that. It's hard to stay under 7,000, especially dualies,
right,
which they can come and go, but that's how close the normal passenger pickup is to that limit. Imagine a semi, I mean, they're way over. just for city infrastructure safety.
Like in town across from Sonic, those trucks were there constantly for several hours. I know because my son not here.
It's kind of the buy. That's the buy we don't say much about. You know, I made a push early in the year that we were going to make a big deal out of that for vendors and all that. But I think for short-term parking, you know, the winter, we're going to give that buy, but it comes down to permission again. And we have already talked to the one thing we know the railroad is not going to do, give permission for anything. They don't necessarily say we care, but they're not going to give you permission. And that's the only way around that option in that spot. But you're right, and I don't, we would not tow or give a ticket and, you know, for the one every so often. But if that turns into co-op, we're going to, you know, it's going to be like, okay, wait a minute, we just made a mistake, and now we're going to have to fix that. It really, co-op is really the answer. And they have the facilities to do that.
First off, Chief, I am excited about this report. Everything is headed in the right direction, even the one that's that little bit, I'm glad you explained that, but that is mostly, what did you call them? Distributors?
Right.
Dealers, whatever.
Right. Dealers.
Yeah. As opposed, yeah, so it's, congratulations for that. I know that has a lot to do with you. The other thing that you've been doing is dealing with, like Mario, that situation, and I got the whose idea was this? With moving on. I know you don't either. That's, you know, that's okay, but you're always there filling in, and that's not easy with that kind of turnover. So congratulations for that. I did have a question. We talked a few weeks back about the LEAD, is that right?
LEAD program?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Is that functioning well for you here? I haven't heard much about it.
Technically, we're not up and running yet. So I've been mirroring Alamosa, learning the policy side, learning how the work groups work, but they don't have a caseworker hired for us yet. So we're in a holding pattern. We started talking about logistics today, as a matter of fact, as office space, a car. My policy is being tweaked to allow everything to kind of work right. We have a training on the 12th, which is next Wednesday, about our first look for the officers to start understanding the program and what their responsibilities and possibilities will be. The biggest kind of kickoff meeting will be, I think it's January 23rd. I'd have to look at my phone to be for sure, but it's the third week of January, and I can definitely make sure that we get that down. But they still want minimal participation till the 1st of March. So Carrie, the director, she doesn't want to push too fast, but she doesn't want to push too slow, because it's kind of a perfect time for to have a case manager ready for the load, understanding what's going on and available, because most likely our biggest influx will be immediate. Everybody's got that person that they think may be appropriate for this program. We'll probably all put that person on the availability block, and they'll get this influx of people. That will probably significantly reduce on a monthly, 6-month, whatever basis as we go along. But she's a little bit concerned opening the floodgates, and that first 6-8 people come through from us, because Alamosa went from, I think, 2 to like 16 in a quarter. So if she gets that percentage even reduced for Monte Vista, she would overburden her staff right now and probably hurt the program. So she's probably erring on the side of caution, but I totally get it. So we are way behind in some respects, but right on track for what she wants. So I know it seems like it's been forever since we brought this to you, but 1st of March is the date. So we have a while to go before we see much of what we can kind of report on. And then hopefully we'll have her here once a quarter, or we'll have our own case manager that will come and give briefs, or I'll brief for them, or however. But we just talked more today about some of the logistical pieces, because they're going to actually move right into the building with us. So we'll know exactly what's going on. They're going to have office space. They're probably going to use a city car, because if you remember, it's an all-inclusive kind of process where they're taking people to court. They're taking them shopping. They're taking them to their appointments. They're making sure they're getting their you know, their proper medications, eyeglasses, doctors. I mean, it's a big deal. So once it kicks off, it's not just a couple of counseling sessions. It's kind of a lifestyle. So I can see why she's nervous. Because you imagine going from, okay, I have about 75% caseload to 150% caseload, you know, overnight. It could be a little daunting.
I heard a lot of good things about it, and I had an opportunity to talk to the folks in Alamosa and got some very good reports. So, yeah, I wasn't pushing. I was just, I like the sound of it, and just looking forward to seeing that come to pass. So.
Yeah, I think we're excited. I think we definitely have some people that are good fits, and I know that we're going to benefit from their 6 to 8 months of learning curve as well, which I think that's why Forrest and I haven't pushed. We're just happy to let them work the bugs out. I mean, they only really kicked off in May, so they're pretty new to it still. But I get a report. I go to their meetings twice a month from the work group side of things. And I'm pretty impressed. I mean, they have 60, 80, 90, 120 day sober people that are doing very well.
Right.
Yes. Good stuff. Yeah. Any other questions? Well, I just want to thank you guys for a good year as well. I felt very supported, and I know you guys have been involved. But I am going to ask you, gotta come to Neighborhood Watch. That's my next big push. I'm really proud of the officers, and I'm really proud of Neighborhood Watch. These statistics wouldn't be possible without them, and I think we can do better. So I think if you guys can carve one more night out of your month, that'd be awesome.
I forgot the last one, I'm sorry. I went through town and was like, what's going on at the chamber?
It's all right. We found drugs in a purse, and we had all kinds of fun. It was Margaret's purse.
Nice closing line. Gee, appreciate it.
You got to watch your neighbors.
How that dog worked. That was amazing to see.
So are you playing Jaime tonight?
I am. Evening, Council. I'm Kim, Field Wanda Recreation Assistant. In front of you, you should have the report from Jaime with all of our numbers as far as Pee Wee sports go. I'll keep this short. We're just wrapping up now our fall sports, so we just ended volleyball, football, flag football, getting all that equipment back in, checked in, wrapped up girls basketball, which we actually hosted the tournament for, and we had 3 out of our 6 teams place. We didn't win the championship, but 2nd and 3rd. And then we are getting ready now for boys basketball. We actually start open gyms next week, and then games start the first week of January. Rentals at Sky High have been pretty steady. This weekend there's a craft fair there. And that's it, just getting ready for the new year. Adult sports that start in March, and just getting ready for the new year. Do you guys have any questions for me? No?
Sounds like you guys have been busy.
Yeah, very busy. Thank you.
Thank you. The greatest babysitter in Monte Vista.
No, she is not.
Well, you know.
Don't you
Yes,
hear
no.
that.
I don't know, I did have some cool babysitters growing up, and our kids might prefer a babysitter versus what they get at Kids in Action. Sorry I wasn't on the agenda, and you didn't get a report. I was actually out all week. Today is my first day back because my immune system decided it needed the flu. So we're back trying to get in the swing of things just to end the week out. But I had some really interesting things. I've been putting together some letters of inquiry to some foundations for some grant funds for 2019. And when I pulled membership numbers, I was like, that is pretty impressive. I knew that 2018 it's been a rough year. We've had a lot of challenges come our way. Our kids have been out of control. We've been trying to figure out how to manage them. But when I see numbers, it kind of makes sense. since it's kind of the winter months, attendance now in December will start to kind of drop off. Well, it usually has been dropping off. We're seeing between 55 and 60 each day. So we get a break of like 10 kids, which 60 is still a lot, but it's more manageable than 70. But looking at some numbers, in 2016, I'm going to give you the last 3 years. In 2016, or 2 years, in 2016, we had 263 individual children enrolled in Kids Connection throughout the year. With the attendance throughout that entire year added up, we had 7,568 individual contacts with children. In 2017, we had 281 children enrolled in the program, with a total of 9,208 individual contacts throughout the year. For 2018, and this is as of October 31st. I haven't done November's numbers, and I won't get to December's numbers till December's over with. I currently have 316 individual children enrolled in the program. Now, it's not 316 kids that come to me every single day, but we have enrolled 316 children that have utilized our services at least one day throughout the year. With that, we have had a total of 10,463 individual contacts with children. When I looked at those numbers, I was completely shocked because I didn't think they were that high. For some reason, the more kids you have come in the doors, when we have 75 kids, it feels like we have 30. When you have 30, it feels like you have 75, if that makes sense. But the more kids you have, the less it feels like you have in the doors, and the days are easier to manage. When I pulled the attendance throughout the entire year, there was one day in April that we had 96 kids in attendance that one day. And I keep saying we're never going to hit that capacity for licensing. We've never had that many, but we were like 4 away from hitting 100 children at the program one day, and it was during the school year too. It wasn't even during the summer program. I cannot for the life of me figure out what happened that day or what was going on. But the numbers surrounding that entire week and throughout that month were all pretty consistent with those numbers. So I just wanted to give you guys those numbers so that you can kind of think about how many kids we see and how busy we've been. Some other news for us, we finished our Thanksgiving feast. It was a huge success. I had all of the food donated either by community members, parents, everybody. I didn't have to buy one food item for the feast this year, and usually we have to purchase a couple $100 worth of supplies to make it happen, and this year we didn't have to put 1 penny into it. I think we even ended up with a $20 cash donation that we were holding on to, or we made the donation and I was hoping that I wasn't going to have to use it, and we didn't actually have to use it. So it was really nice. I've never had that great of a turnout. We only ended up with like 30 students and about 20 parents. But just looking at numbers, we served about 50 pounds of turkey, 6 pounds of macaroni and cheese. We had 2 large green bean casseroles, a large corn and green chili casserole. We served 10 boxes of stuffing and 13 pies. 11 boxes. Oh, okay, 11 boxes of stuffing. And we didn't have very much left over. We had a little bit of turkey and some macaroni and cheese, right, Miss Susan? Yes, and maybe like a half a pie or a slice of pie here and there, but we didn't have a lot left over. Some other exciting news, and this was the reason that I'm keeping you here late, is I had a representative from the Alcott Foundation show up last week just to touch base, see how things are going, talk about the next year's funding. The last 2 years, Alcott Foundation has given Kids Connection $30,000 for the last 2 years, for a total of $60,000 over the last 2 years. They told me to go ahead and write another grant proposal, and we're looking at adding a possible $5,000 to that. So we're looking at potentially $35,000 in funding for the next 2 years, so a total of $70,000 over the next 2 years from Alcott Foundation. And they actually dropped off a check for $5,000 because they had funds left over for the year. So we received another $5,000 donation from the foundation with no stipulations. It can go directly to operating expenses, and we don't have to report on it. So I wanted you guys to hear that great news. We had the movie matinee for the holiday festival, and we had about 55 people in attendance, and we made $89 in donations. I wish the turnout would have been better. It was kind of thrown together last minute, and we probably could do better if we're given a chance for that again next year. But we got as many people in there as we could. And then today I actually had a meeting with Katina Rakic. I'm completely butchering her name. She's a program officer from Caring for Colorado Foundation, and she said she's met with a bunch of youth serving foundations or different organizations throughout the valley over the last couple months, and Kids Connection keeps coming up in her conversations. And she said, whatever you guys are doing, your peers really see it happening in your community, and you're doing something right because they have nothing but great things to say about you. We determined that Kids Connection and Caring for Colorado could potentially be a great fit, and so she has encouraged us to apply for grant funding for 2019. And she said she would work with us to figure out how we can make sure we can align everything to become a good partnership over the next year. So with that is all that I have for you. If you have any questions, I can answer them. Thanks for squeezing me in.
You do a fantastic job. I can't tell you how much I appreciate what you do for this community and the youth of this community. Thank you.
We enjoy it most of the time.
And you're also very honest, which we really appreciate.
Yeah, I can't pretend that our kids are amazing little, like, cupcakes and rainbows, because they definitely are not. They are very much Sour Patch Kids. You love them to death, and then you turn around and they're like chopping your clothes in half with scissors, or chasing after you with something that they probably shouldn't have in my facility. But we try our best to encourage them to be their own individuals and reach for the stars. So
Thank you very much.
thank you.
I'm so glad you're feeling better.
Yes, I am. I'm about 90%, but I'll be better just in time for the weekend.
Perfect.
Thank you, Nika. Council committee, city commissions, and council reports.
You're first, you're on the end.
You're first.
Okay, we've done library board, Crime Stoppers, which is going really well. There are, anyone you talk to in the community, there is a place for donations that are really benefiting the community as far as the police department and crime. Coffee with the Cop was cool. One of the members had asked about an activity to help them learn how to identify a possible criminal that they might see, or something criminal going on. And so when I arrived, there was a car parked in the back that I'd never seen before, and it was idling, and I thought, well, that's odd. And so I went in, and as I was moving stuff in, I thought, well, I'm going to lock the door till somebody else shows up, and because that car's still sitting there. And Margot shows up, and she's like, the door's locked. And so anyway, we went through the meeting, and Chief did a presentation on the K-9 unit, and there's another fabulous place for donations is the K-9 unit that he's building, and money that he's reserving for the future of that program. And he brought the dog in, and the dog went through, and Jerry Clare was making coffee in the back, and I asked Jerry, I said, who's the guy in the back? And he's like, I don't know who it was. And anyway, so the dog comes in and goes through, and the guy had come in and planted a purse that had training drugs in it. And so the dog came through and found the drugs, found the purse, and that was interesting. Everybody was surprised that while everyone was there, someone came in and planted something in the office, in the building. And then the chief asked us to identify him. And it really proved why Neighborhood Watch is effective. If neighbors are watching out for one another, as a group, we were able to come together and provide, I think, law enforcement with a very good ID of this individual, even though maybe someone hadn't seen his face or what he was carrying, how he was dressed. As a group, we could come to come together and identify that, and so that was cool. And it was fun to learn, and I think everybody really enjoyed that. We had kind of a Christmas party, and everybody brought goodies, and we did talk a little bit about Neighborhood Watch 365, and as Chief explained, that's kind of the next step, and it's part of Neighborhood Watch, and how, as council members talking about how important crime is, you know, how we can get that down into, we can be leaders to drill that down more effectively into the neighborhoods with the people that we know. So that'll be coming, and hope that all of you can come on the 21st to that meeting. And I think everybody's looking forward to having that conversation. Didn't get to go to Coffee with the Cop because of everything going on Saturday, but Crime Stoppers also did Rocktoberfest. They participated in it as advertising and talked to the community, participated in Rocktoberfest at Sky High with the church, and also Trunk or Treat in Alamosa. Got to talk to lots of people, interact with the kids, and that's always a good thing for law enforcement to be doing. And so the Christmas party on December 19th. Not January. No, we can't have a Christmas party in January. But I would move that we, City Council, donate $500 or whatever they need that's left in that budget from travel and expenses to help fund that Christmas party for the employees.
It's a great idea. I had actually been in conversation with Forrest myself, and I didn't want them to give their own party. So I said, well, I'll do the party for you. And Gary and other council members and I talked about it, and then Forrest popped out the email. You know, I think that's a great idea. And if we do a potluck, that's fine. I can cook as well as other things. Somewhat. I'll bring paper plates.
It'll still be your party. Side or dessert, and then with your gracious assistance, we've got some things for
Perfect. Perfect. And I think whatever you think you need to cover it should happen.
There was a balance in there that would cover typically what we've done, right? So I would say that
500 or as needed, yeah, to cover that.
as needed.
Perfect.
So everybody got the head nod?
Okay.
Do you have anything, Kathy?
I don't have a whole lot, except that I just want to let everybody know the shelter is at absolute capacity. We have got over 50 dogs and numerous cats and kittens, and they're not necessarily brought in by the ordinance officer. They're public drop-offs and people not wanting their dogs, and I want a new one for Christmas, and you know, we get some stories. But so if you know of anyone who is walking the line thinking they might want to adopt a pet or take home a dog or something currently, please come out to the shelter. We are absolutely at capacity. And we're actually working on a skeleton crew too, because like everybody else, we don't have any money. And so we are just overflowing with dogs and other things that they produce. So please come and adopt a dog. Or tell your neighbor. And Ruth Ann, how's Henry? Yeah, you can foster as well. When you foster, we pay for all the vet and stuff, and Ruth Ann very kindly took this ancient, most darling golden retriever and for us, and we pay for the vetting if there's issues with the animal. We generally foster older dogs or pregnant dogs, or ones that cannot be adopted. And we do transfers to other no-kill shelters, which we'll have one coming up, but even they are at capacity. It depends on the age. A puppy is $150, an adult dog is $125, and an older dog. Well, we send them out spayed or neutered, and that basically pays for that. I mean, we don't make any money on that. We send them spayed or neutered, and they have shots and a tracking chip, and that's actually a discounted spay or neuter. So we occasionally do that, but when we do, we lose money. So, but we've got a lot, and I'm not saying that's out of the picture. So.
I was just thinking if you had too many, you can't accept any more, maybe
Yeah.
like maybe some family that can afford to buy dog food, but maybe necessarily can't afford that $100. But
Right.
maybe they don't only love them.
Right. Yeah, well, and the state actually makes us send them, well, we would do it anyway, spayed or neutered, and believe it or not, hardly anyone we get in has been spayed or neutered. So that's the first priority for everyone we send out. But I'm not saying it's out of the picture too much, but so that's my spiel. And I don't want to keep everybody later.
Victor?
I want to thank the community for their support this past year. It's a doozy, you know. We're in it for the long haul. Hopefully we can come to some common grounds with the budget and everything else that's, you know, in our path. I just want to remind everybody, you know, shopping online, bring your packages in, try to get those out so that people don't steal them. There's a lot of people out there taking packages and looking around for things. So we can do our part, you know, to try to minimize those, like locking your doors only keeps an honest person honest. You know, I don't know if I said that right. But, you know, I also would like just to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. And
We won't see you.
Yeah.
See you next year.
Gary?
Just a couple of things. It's been a busy month with the transportation department, so I've been doing a lot. But I did make contact with some folks. RV parking has been a big thing with me ever since I got here, actually, because just finding a place for these vehicles to stop is going to automatically improve the town and the businesses, and made some preliminary research on that. It's a project, frankly, that originated with Forrest to get, since the RV parking, I'm not talking about RV parks, you have to differentiate here, but the parking over by the Full and Wider turned out to be, I still haven't given up on it, but it's gotten to be kind of expensive. But I did do some preliminary interviewing with the folks where we're considering would be a good place for RV parking, and got into some detail as how that would work out, and it's looking very good. So that is a positive thing. I honestly believe, you can quote me on this, that this will make an almost immediate noticeable effect on our town if we can stop. I don't know how long it'll take to get them to actually pay attention and stop, but it shouldn't be too long if we can get the signage out. Somewhat of a noticeable effect almost immediately if we can get these vehicles to stop. They're looking for a place to stop. That's why this is vacationing. That's the recreational vehicles. That's what they're looking for. Anyhow, but hopefully have some more good news about that. The other thing is, I wanted to double up on the kudos to Jennifer. She graciously did not mention me because I had the responsibility initially of doing something with that, and got the group together and things changed. Jennifer stepped up and took the whole thing over, and I've never seen anything quite like it. The parade was phenomenal. and the turnout was good. All the little activity, everything else that goes along with that. I know you said you mentioned hadn't done anything like that. Well, good job, because look forward to a bigger and better one coming up next year. Really looking forward to that. So thank you for not saying anything about it. We started with that, and it just it turned out phenomenally well. That's the bottom line. So we appreciate you. And he was well, he complained about it a little, I heard, but no. Anyhow, appreciate that, and that, like I said, looking forward to another good one. And I would repeat Victor's greeting of Merry Christmas. It's that time, and I feel it in the air. So you all have a great Christmas, and we're looking forward to seeing you in the new year.
Thank you. I would do that as well. She was going off the deep end. I thought I was going to have to call the chief to come take care of stuff, but everybody in the community stepped up. And I would miss half of the names and everything else, but everybody stepped up. The community pulled together. Bob Gailey getting together, the choir that sang, that was really good, getting everybody involved. And there was a lot of people out. They weren't on Adams Street so much as they were on 2nd, so but there were, I'm guessing there was 200-300 people out that night. So it was really good. So thank you to everybody. You too, Nita. You accelerate in what you do. Crime Stopper and the chief, and everybody be diligent, like Victor said, with packages and stuff. Pay attention to what's going on around your neighborhood, because they're out stealing Christmas lights and stuff again. So just pay attention to your surroundings. I can't emphasize that enough. I preach that to my wife on a daily basis. Pay attention to your surroundings, even in the parking lots of Walmart, Safeway, wherever you're at. Pay attention to what's going on around you, as you might not see somebody sneak up on you. And when we're talking about the drug situation, don't be afraid to turn people in, guys. I know a lot of people are afraid to say anything, but I will tell you, I got my eyes on some, and I will be turning them in. The little rascals, let me catch them one more time.
Okay, but, can I say something? Oh, go ahead, finish on.
Thank you all for being here tonight. And as Victor said, Merry Christmas. We will have a year under our belt when we come back on the 6th. I've learned a lot. And I appreciate the support from the community. I know I've always seen eye to eye, but I would say that as a community, we're pulling together, and it is our town, not ours, our town. So thank you all for your support.
Okay, really quick, along the lines of package stealing, I was at my house and I pulled out of my driveway and ran around the front and noticed a package on my front step, and the Marcus guys, or whoever it is that is putting in the fiber optics, were right in front of my house. And I pulled up in front of my house and walked up my front step and got the package off of my porch. And he said, "Hold on." Hold on. So I said, "Well, I live here." And he said, "How do I know that?"
Nice.
Wow. And he doesn't even, they're from somewhere else. So I said, "Okay, hang on." So, and he was a big guy, and he was going to take me down. So I put the package back on the porch, and I went out to my car, and I got my driver's license that had my street address on it, so that he would let me take my package. So it's not only us who are doing the neighborhood watch thing, it's other people as well. And I thought, well, good for you. So if you see those guys, you go tell them good job, because he was going to tackle me for taking the package off my front porch.
That's terrific.
Yeah, isn't that great?
That is great.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Before you close, I forgot this. It was a bit close, but on the 16th of this month, an know everybody's going to party and stuff, but at my house, at 258 Orchard, and I didn't bring out an invitation, but my wife and I have an open house. So you come out, visit, eat, visit with other people that are there, and if you're hungry, you eat more, and it's all gone. And so it'll be between 2:30 and whenever. So you're all welcome.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you, Wayne.
All right. We'll adjourn this meeting until January 6th. Third, sorry, January 3rd. At least I got January. January 3rd.
Minor workshop next Monday night.
Oh.
December 10th workshop. All right.
Yeah, December 10th, be there. No.